Let's bring in Pat Forde, Sports Illustrated senior writer here. You're usually the one, the bearer of bad news, but I beat you to the punch here 15 minutes ago here, Pat. So just to recap, we got the Big Ten and Pac-12. They are scheduled to cancel fall sports coming up tomorrow. You have the Big 12 and you have the ACC on the fence, and the SEC is looking at TV contracts, see if they can maybe bring in some schools. So what has happened? What has changed since last week here?
Well, a few things changed. I mean, only in college sports, Dan, is it possible that you're releasing schedules all last week, getting people excited, and then on Saturday morning, basically Northern Illinois goes into a meeting in the Mid-American Conference and says, we're not playing. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, if you're not going to play, maybe we shouldn't play. And then the Mid-American Conference, the number 9 or 10 conference in the nation, says we're not going to play. And everybody else is like, oh, I guess we're not going to play either. It's unbelievable that this could happen in the space of a weekend. Now, I think the Big Ten was tracking that way all along, or certainly for the last week. Even before that, Kevin Warren, the commissioner, has been the most cautious and guarded of all the Power 5 commissioners talking about the season. I think the winds were blowing that way strongly. During the week, the Mid-American Conference probably stuck a finger in the air and said, if the Big Ten's going, well, we're probably going to go first.
Yeah, it felt like that you got the commissioners together, that they wanted to be all in on this and not have, an outlier. And the SEC may be that outlier, but we thought that was a possibility anyway the last couple of months here. I know that the Pac-12 didn't want to be the first to announce this. And then I think the Big Ten was maybe going to take that preemptive strike and say, all right, we'll be the ones to announce it. And then the Pac-12. I don't know what happens with the ACC and the Big 12, but could you see where the SEC goes alone and says, we're going to play X number of games here and have a conference champion, and we'll have a mythical national champion?
I think it'd be highly improbable. We reported last night and really over the weekend that by the end of this week, everybody will be out.
Okay.
And there will be no fall football. I think that I think the Big 12 is closer to going the way of the Big 10 and Pac-12 than most people think. The ACC is more closely in line with where the SEC is, but I think ultimately they all realize we're not going to play. There may still be some people pushing for it in the SEC, but here's why you can't really be the outlier and go it alone. First of all, if all the other conferences with all of their medical experts and all their presidents say, we don't think it is safe for the players, is the SEC supposed to say, we really don't care whether it's safe for the players, we're going because we like football? I don't think that's going to happen. And the other thing is, a lot of the state schools in that league have pushed really hard at the presidential level to enhance the academic profiles of their schools, specifically Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina. They want out-of-state tuition dollars by making the school a better place. If you say, we're a football power and we want to play football and we don't care about the pandemic, that's not going to help you at admissions time.
How does this affect these players who would be eligible for the NFL draft? If you think about it, these one-year wonders that we've had recently, Dwayne Haskins, where would Joe Burrow be? Kyler Murray, these guys who, I'm talking about just quarterbacks, but there are a lot of positions here. There are a lot of players who came out of nowhere. Joe Burrow was a fifth-round draft pick. And then he had the magical season and is the number 1 pick overall. Dwayne Haskins comes out of nowhere. Kyler Murray out of baseball. What do they do?
I don't know. I mean, it's tough for those guys. You feel bad. Look, I feel bad for all the players, and it's been amazing to watch, Trevor Lawrence basically unionized college football at midnight last night. These guys, they want to play. A lot of them do. And yeah, for the established stars who aren't going to play because there's no way they're playing in the spring, to the up and coming guys, to the hidden gems that you were talking about, this takes away a big opportunity for them. And yeah, you can try to play in the spring. Sure. And some guys would be happy to play and try to help improve their stock then. But it puts a major crimp in the entire trickle down of football, from the NFL through college to high school recruiting. Everything is on hold and up in the air.
What do you think happens today?
I don't know whether if the Big Ten will wait until tomorrow on this. There's a scheduled meeting for Pac-12 presidents tomorrow, or if something happens today. I'm not sure. I would expect, as you obviously said, those two are going to be probably first. I do think the Big Ten was trying to get everybody on the same page since everybody was mad at the Big Ten in July for preempting everyone on the schedule. They were all supposed to be on the same page then. But I think the other conferences, too, are going to be right there behind them as far as the group of 5 leagues. Today, here's what I think. Today, the players will continue to make a social media push to try to make their voices heard, to say, hey, let's reconsider. And good for them, but it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, I was told liability. That was the key word, that liability with these universities, and if something happens and, what it would cost them. The risk and the reward, the risk isn't worth the reward. But can you make a case, though, Pat, that at these Power 5 conferences who do have the money to test and unlike the Mid-American Conference, that they are safer on campus than maybe they would be if they were at home and, socializing?
Sure. Well, here's the thing. The players will probably stay on campus. Unless these campuses are going to close down to students, most of them are having students on campus. Not all of them, but most of them. So, I don't anticipate the Ohio State team and the Michigan team going home, per se. I think they will stay there unless they want to opt out and work out for the draft. So, I think you'll stay there and you'll still be in a situation where you're probably getting routine testing and you're working out there and they're trying to make things as safe as possible. I think another big factor, Dan, is worry about heart conditions. There has been a few players here and there who have said, hey, my heart is not right. There have been doctors who have said some players have had enlarged hearts, myocarditis, and that really got the attention of the presidents. My colleague Ross Dellinger did a good story on that, just that when you start talking to presidents about unknown long-term heart damage, and to your point of liability, do you want to be on the hook if you got 5 players with heart damage?
Yeah, you bring that up, and I was told that they're seeing players, if they may be asymptomatic, but a couple of weeks after the fact, they're starting to see some issues with their hearts with some of these players. Granted, it might be a small sample here, but these are things that, a university is liable, and they realize this, that just, what would happen with lawsuits here if something happened. So I think that's why I think they were in denial for a long time. And I just think that now, as we get closer to classes starting and kids coming on campus, the reality hit home.
Yeah, no, they pushed the decision so far down the road as far as they could. Yeah. And we're in denial, like, hey, we can pull this off, can't we? Sure we can. Let's put on a show. And, the closer you get to it, the more there's just too many problems facing it. And now, we'll see if they can get together and come up with a plan for the spring. There's no good spring options, but is there a spring option that's close enough to good that you can do? Or have they just been sitting there with wishful thinking about the fall and not even thought about the spring yet?
Yeah. If you could interview one person on the record involved in all of this, who would you want to interview? Coach, player?
I think I would interview probably Gene Smith at Ohio State, the athletic director there, because they're the flagship program of that conference. And I think he's a smart man, and they've got a great season ahead, but they're putting on the brakes on this. And I want to know what exactly are the concerns from a health standpoint that have made you want to stop an incredibly good season at a place that cares incredibly much about college football.
Yeah, that's the surprising element here. When I told you that there were 2 schools in the Big Ten that were pushing to play, you probably would have thought Ohio State for sure. And now I find out that it's Nebraska and it's Iowa. Does that surprise you at all?
Nebraska doesn't surprise me at all. The second one, from inklings I had gotten, it wasn't going to be Ohio State. I thought maybe Purdue because Mitch Daniels, the president there, former governor of Indiana, has been pretty bullish on trying to let's reopen, let's normalize. So I wouldn't have guessed Iowa, but Nebraska, yeah.
Good to talk to you again, Pat. Thanks for joining us as always. Great work over the weekend.
Thank you. Optimism 2021.
Pat Forde, Sports Illustrated senior writer.